Welcome to another handy lesson, and these lessons are a series of how to teach the different skills in English: listening, reading, speaking, and writing. Today, we're going to check how to teach reading. As I mentioned in the previous lesson on how to teach listening, all the different skills have sub-skills. Reading is too similar to listening as they are both input skills, right? Well, if in listening we had listening for specific information and listening for gist, we have something similar in reading. In reading, we have skimming and scanning, which are like two main sub-skills. Skimming means it is similar to listening for gist. Skimming will be reading for gist, for general information. Scanning will be reading for specific detailed information. We have some other skills in reading, like using background or prior knowledge about a topic. For example, let's imagine that we bring a text to our students, and the text is about the web space new telescope. So before we have the reading, we can bring into our conversation about telescopes, the NASA, outer space, and subjects that are related to the main topic, and see the prior knowledge of our students regarding the topic that we're going to talk or we're going to read. Okay, making predictions, it's another sub skills, predicting what the text is going to be about. Asking questions to the text is a critical thinking sub skills for reading. When you have a text, you can ask questions. Let's imagine the text says, the James Webb Telescope was invented in 2020 because the astronomers wanted to observe the farthest places on the space. You can ask questions to that text by saying, was it really invented in 2020? How much have they found? How much have astronomers found? And are they still discovering new things? Just based on that text, asking questions to the text is a sub-skill of reading because it produces not only the comprehension, the necessary comprehension skill for reading, but also the ability to critically think on the text that we have. Inferring meaning from context, making connections, meaning like understanding the semantics and pragmatics of the texts, right? How the words connect with one with another, how paragraphs or even chapters connect one with another to convey meaning. Using graphic organizers. When we ask our students to create a summary, to create a mind map or a flow chart from a text, it's a reading sub-skill because it means that our students have understood the main idea or the detailed information about the text that we have assigned them to read. Recognizing sequences is another sub-skill in reading because our students will be able to understand the outline of a text. That doesn't only work for reading, but it also works for writing, as by understanding the outline and the form of a text, they will be able to reproduce it later in the writing skills. Let's remember that the input skills, listening and reading, work for our brains to produce the language. They work for the output skills, okay? So, as I also mentioned when I gave the lesson for teaching listening, we have two different strategies, top-down and bottom-up. We say that top-down is basically focused on the functionality of the skill, meaning that our students are able to comprehend all the text, to understand, ask questions, critical think, and all these matters. But if we follow a bottom-up strategy, then we want our students to focus on form, meaning understanding the grammar, maybe highlighting tenses in the text, or adjectives, parts of a speech, or finding conjunctions, or maybe we have our students identify suffixes and prefixes. This is like the theoretical part of the language regarding to the reading skill. So let's remember, Bottom-up strategy focuses on the form of the language in that skill, and the top-down strategy focuses on the functionality, the real life, the real situation, activities where we use the skill. Something important about reading is that there are different methodologies to follow, different approaches to follow when we teach reading. First one is something that is called square. We actually pronounce it square, but we spell it SQ3R, or square. What does that mean? Survey and question and 3 R's: read, recite, review. What does that mean? Well, students survey the assigned reading by first skimming through it. Let's imagine you give them a text about animals in Africa, okay? So students are going to read the text and skimming it to find the gist. Then you ask students, you encourage them to ask questions to the text. That's why it's called survey question, okay? So they write 5, I don't know, maximum 10 questions to the text. Then they read it again and go for reading for specific information. They try to answer the questions that they have written before, okay? Finally, they will read the questions out loud. They will try to memorize the answers, and then they will review, okay, if their answers were correct. So that is why we call it survey, which means understanding the text, question, asking questions to the text, then read the answers, try to memorize and recite them from memory, and then review and make sure that the answers are correct according to the text. So this is an activity that you can apply when you teach reading to your students. Square. The next methodology to teach reading is a standard reading exercise. It's basically teaching learners a series of questions that can be used with any text. The questions are meant to train the learners to the most important reading skills, such as predicting, finding main idea, identifying writer's purpose, and thinking critically about the content of the text. Just by understanding these 4 things, we may infer what the questions could be. So, predicting. You give a general question to the students so they could apply it to any text. What is it about? That could be applied to an academic text, to an essay, to a story, to a comic book, to any text. Okay, what is it about? Then what's the main idea of each paragraph? Could be applied to any. Okay, what did the writer want to say with that text? Could be about anything, or could be applied to any text. Okay, finally, what do you think about the opinion of the author, or what is your opinion about this text? Okay, so these are questions that could be applied to any text, and this is why it's called a standard reading exercise. The next technique is reciprocal teaching. It says, in this procedure, the teacher trains the learners to use 4 main strategies, which could be applied to any text, similar to the standard reading exercise. But in this case, the students first predict the content of a paragraph before reading it. They make questions focusing on the main idea of the paragraph. They summarize what has just been read, and they seek clarification on difficult points in the paragraph. It goes a little bit beyond the standard reading exercise. And this one, first of all, students will skim and scan. All right, they will first predict what the content might be before reading it. Then they will make questions, but focusing on the main idea of each paragraph. So they will find the main idea first, and then they will ask questions to that main idea of each paragraph. Then they will create a summary. Now there's an activity. Okay, they will create a summary about what they read. And finally, they will investigate even more about that topic. Let's go back to the animals in Africa again. So they could summarize what they just read, and they can go to the internet to find more information about animals in Africa. Make sure that information is written in the text is confirmed by serious and reliable resources from the internet, which not only produces reading and critical thinking, but also autonomous learning. So this is reciprocal teaching. We have another technique to teach reading, which is called CORI, concept-oriented reading instruction. Concept-oriented reading instruction. It says, Nation, an author on teaching skills, describes CORI as an integrated strategy approach to reading comprehension. It involves training learners to use a set of strategies through the sequence of modeling, scaffolding, and guided practice. For example, activating background knowledge, questioning, searching for information, summarizing, organizing graphically, and structuring stories. As you may be observing, CORI and the previous one, standard reading exercise, and the other one, reciprocal teaching, okay, have similar characteristics. CORI, unlike the other two, reciprocal teaching and standard reading, goes for specific concepts. Okay, questioning, it promotes or it fosters learners' autonomy more than the other two by having students summarizing, organizing graphically, not only writing a summary, but also creating mind maps, flowcharts, okay, and creating structuring the stories, even creating alternate stories, alternate endings to what they have just read, in order to promote critical thinking and also learners' autonomy. Finally, like any other slide, you have your time to practice a slide, so you can go and practice on how to teach reading. See you in the next handy lesson.